morning. Welcome to everyone to the Matías Romero Institute. As we announced, this session will be in English. And I want to express our gratitude as an institution to have you here, Steve Goldman and Reyes from MIT, in order to have a session about big data analytics. I think for all of us it's an important matter to be familiarized, to get involved, and to know better from this type of experts that we have the fortune to have this morning here at the Matías Romero Institute. First of all, let me introduce Reyes. He's an expert in cybersecurity from MIT. He's the founder, chairman, president, and CEO of Solidity Group. Mr. Reyes graduated in applied mathematics and computer sciences and holds advanced studies in cybersecurity, incident response, and crisis management for several universities, including Stanford University and Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. Mr. Reyes also has more than 20 years experience working in the USA, Latin America, Europe, Asia, New Zealand, and Australia. Wow. As an advocate for national resilience and cybersecurity. He has worked with major global companies including IBM, Hewlett-Packard, and Fujitsu on projects in homeland security, defense, and strategy around the globe. He also participated in a multinational national security project, Joint Border Management System. Please, let's welcome Israel Reyes. He has also been working with us for a few months. He was here in the National Week of Cybersecurity some weeks back, and so we are glad you to have here again. And on my right-hand side, Steve Goldman. He's an investigator and senior management from MIT. Steve is a senior instructor in risk communications and crisis communication at MIT, and in crisis management communications at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Dr. Goldman earned his doctorate in education from the University of Massachusetts. He also obtained his master's degree in nuclear engineering from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT. He's also internationally recognized expert and consultant in business continuity, crisis management, disaster recovery, and crisis communication. He has over 30 years of experience in various aspects of these disciplines, including program management, plan development, training, exercises, and response strategies. Currently, he provides expert hands-on consulting services to corporations, universities, nonprofits, and government agencies. Please welcome Dr. Goldman. So during this 2-hour session, they will introduce their topic. They have prepared some presentations. They are from MIT, of course. And after that, we can just engage in Q&A time in order to have all the benefit that we can have from this session this morning. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you to our panelists for your kind acceptance of our invitation to be here this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alejandro.
Okay. Who's the first? Israel, you have the...
Well, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Alejandro. We highly appreciate the invite, and it is an honor for us to be here, to be able to share our expertise and knowledge with all of you, and I hope we can start a positive relationship where we can collaborate. So I think I have a PowerPoint presentation there. Well, we will be talking about a very interesting subject that, as you know, this technology revolution have changed how we live, how we work, how we communicate. In this new society, technology is an active part of this. Without technology today, we couldn't do business, we couldn't study, or we will have critical issues. This society is composed by humans, by government, by institutions, but also computers. I guess, can you imagine a day without computer, without a mobile phone, or without technology? It will be catastrophic. In this new era of technology, we are creating and producing a new asset. That asset is called data. Data is the most valuable asset of any country, of any company, or any person. And because the technology advanced so quick in compared to legislation, to regulation, there is a lot of risk, a lot of opportunities, but also a lot of challenges. I'm here today to share some of my concerns and to share some of the challenges and the positive outcomes that we can have using properly the technology and using the data. In the last year, we have collected 95% of data. If we take a quantitative measurement, the data that we have today was collected within 3 years. And every year, that pattern is repeating itself. And we still don't have 5G. Imagine the day when we have 5G, the amount of data that a human being will produce will triplicate, because we will have computer, mobile iPhone, our car will have connection to the internet, our house, our television, our appliances at home will have internet connectivity. All that internet connectivity, it creates what we call metadata. Metadata is a data that as soon as you turn on your phone, start to create it. A human produce around 40 zettabytes of data in 24 hours. It's a huge amount of data, of metadata. But this metadata has a problem. It is not well organized and is not structured. And it describes exactly the human activity. For those ones that are familiar with the case of Prisma in the United States, where the government of the United States was collecting the data, they were collecting only metadata. They were not collecting any other data. But the metadata is telling you more, and it's telling you the whole storytelling of a human activity. Why? Because the metadata has components like demographic, geographic, psychographic, and geospatial data, which is the mobility data that we produce in our mobile devices. If we can see in this pyramid, so we have world. The world creates every day a lot of metadata. That metadata is abstract. It doesn't have a human context. Every time you turn on your phone or your computer, or you get a free Wi-Fi in an airport, you start to produce that data. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Excellent. Sorry. I'm not synchronized with my laptop, but now I am. Thank you, doctor. Well, so the world creates a lot of metadata. That data is not structured. It has a high level of entropy, which is the noise in the data, and it doesn't have a human context. Data doesn't tell us a lot. And this is where it's really important artificial intelligence, machine learning, and big data analytics is how do we can create a human context of that data, correct? If I set up here a sniffer for 3G or 4G, I will start to collect a lot of data of all the mobile devices within this space. But I don't know the names, I don't know what is the association, I have no idea, it's very abstract. Data is not really, it is the source, it is our product that we need to work with. That data, when it's segmented and when it has a logical link in between, that data becomes information. So now I can say I have information about this human activity or this group or this city or so on. So information is going from the abstract to the logical. So now I have a logical link in between that data. You possibly have here the concept of clustering, how we can make a clusters of that logical connection. Well, that is when I have an information. However, information is good. It is good to have information. Who has the information has the power. However, that is not knowledge. What we aim in big data analytics is to achieve wisdom, to achieve knowledge. So when we have information and when we organize that information in clusters, for example, I run the sniffer here, I collect raw data, which is abstract, then I organize that raw data with an algorithm to classify it and create clusters. Give me only GPS. Give me only email, International Mobile Equipment ID. Give me last number, last call, last 4 digits, or DDI, dial direct in Word. When I start to do that process, is the organization and the logical link between the extract and that data, the abstract. So when I go to knowledge, which is the next level of information became knowledge, is when I organize all that information. So I can say that I have information about a specific organization, specific group, specific human activity, or a specific object. If my mission objective is to identify a person, a group, or an organization. So knowledge is the organization of that information, but it won't tell me much, correct? Because I can say that, well, I have knowledge about this group, this activity. It happens Monday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., and then the weekend is off, and I can create that correlation analysis and frequency analysis. I can even take the median, the standard deviation, or the variance. I can measure with that knowledge, with that information, how dispersed are my data points. Data points also, they have elasticity in human behavior, in human collective behavior. At the end of the day, everything we do in data analytics is to understand human activity. That's what Google does, Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So they provide you a service. In exchange, you give them all your data that they collect, and they will use that data for marketing. And that's legal because it's under the terms of use. So when I have that knowledge of, well, I know this person or this organization, I have GPS, I have demographic, I have psychographic, I have geospatial data, which is the one that when we move, this records, I can achieve wisdom. Wisdom is the acme of the craft. It is precisely what we wanted to achieve. Wisdom is to know when, where, how, with whom, and whom. Why? Because if I have the knowledge of an objective, of a target, I know GPS, I know demographics, geographics, psychographics, numbers, so on. But wisdom is to be able to identify and make a certain prediction or forecasting about where that person, that organization, or even that economic activity will go down or will go up. It depends on all that big data analytics. And that is the knowledge. Data analytics became very popular lately and very sexy. The reality is that we all have done data analytics since econometrics when we have the first version, but we have small data sets. When I mean small data set, it was a set of census which only used demographic data. It didn't use psychographic data, and it didn't use geographic data and geospatial data. So now we take that concept and we say, well, this is big data because our data sets go from this size, from 5 terabytes to 5 zettabytes. So that increase, it is much more difficult to deal. So we need more tools that enable us to understand how that data can tell us a story about what is happening. If we only get the data, but we don't apply machine learning or support vector machine, which I will talk later, that data will lose the value, because as much data we have, the less value it has. Why? Imagine if right now we are at front of an airport in a runway. Within 20 minutes, I can stand up and see how many airplanes are landing. In a period of 20 minutes, I can take an average that every 2 minutes, one airplane lands. And I can take a look and I say, well, the first 2 airplanes are US West. And then a second is Aeromexico. And then, I don't know, United, American Airlines. And I can take the numbers. In 20 minutes, I can, as a human, I can recognize what is the pattern. I can see that because I have 2 frequencies of one airline, which is US West, I can see that the biggest float, it is US West in that part or in that state, if it's Vegas, for example. But imagine this, that if at the same time in that 20 minutes, I'm receiving data, not only from the airports, from the airport where I am, which is Vegas, if I'm receiving data from all the airports of United States plus the world, as a human, I will get confused and I will have no idea what is the pattern. So I need to apply statistical learning clusters to segmentate and say, I don't need all this data. What I need is only this specific geofence, and I need the data from this geofence. So that is why big data is the new tool to do that, because we produce a lot. So when we took, sometimes for those ones that took statistics or probability or even econometrics, what we do with the statistics, we take the statistics, we measure the variance, the covariance, and then we did a linear regression analysis just to see what was the behavior of those points. We get a line and we optimize that line, and we can say in a very high level that with this amount of data, using 2 sigma, I will be in 95% confidence interval that this is the behavior. It is an econometrics will be increasing in the economy, a positive, or it's going down, or so on. And then the points that they were too deviated from that main line, we will say this is the outlier. So we don't care about this. Depends, right? We care more about which is close to that line, to the medium. So imagine this. Long time ago, before the calculator exists, when we went to buy products on the open market, the guys that sell the products, they sell only like 3 or 4 products, and they know the price of each product. If we ask for 1 kilo of product A and 2 kilos from product B and C and so on, they mentally can compute that because they do it every day, correct? Do you remember those times? So, but if you bring another product, which they don't have the number of how much it costs, and you tell them, well, you are very good in mathematics. What about if you compute me 20 kilos of a product that costs 3 pesos 55 cents? That person probably won't be able to do that arithmetic problem. So we start to use the calculator to make it easy, to make it fast. In this world, now it's like the same, but in a big scale. That's why we need those machine learning and statistical analysis to be able to segmentate all that data and be certain in our predictions. If we have a sample size which is too small, our predictions will be very bad. Do you remember that back in the 80s, the forecast, the weather forecast, that was like 50-50 chance. They say it will rain, and it was very hot. They say it will be very hot, and it rains. In the 80s, the weather was a challenge because it was a problem collecting that data. But today, the weather forecast is really a current. It can say at 2 p.m. it will be a snowstorm, and in fact, two minutes before or 2 minutes after, it will happen. Because this is a lot of sensors that capture all this data that can compute in these algorithms of big data analytics, and they have a high precision level. So, yeah. So what is the key to success in getting, the key to success in getting the right data and finding the right attributes? Sorry, I think my English is getting worse now. I will be ending speaking none. Well, the key to success is getting the right data and finding the right attributes. As I said, when we're collecting data, we need to make sure which is our mission statement, which is our mission objective. Having that well-defined, we can focus on the specific data. And when we do the clusters, then we can focus and create a limit theorem that I only need people, for example, from 20 to 24 years old. I possibly need only a gender, maybe female or male. And possibly I only need to have a specific geofence, geographic. And even possibly now, with the data mining and social media, I only can have a specific psychographic profile, positive or extrovert, introvert, or so on, correct? So the key to be successful in our project is to be able to select the right data and to select the right attributes. If we don't have that, we have no value. It will be like finding a needle in a haystack. I think we say here like finding la aguja en un pajar when we have too much data. So this is some statistics. Yeah. I'm not nervous. Just to clarify. So at the beginning of 2020, the digital universe was estimated to consist of 44 zettabytes of data. That was recently. That means that we have a 44 times 10 to the power of 21. By 2025, we will have around 463 exabytes that will be created every 24 hours. 43 exabytes, 463, it is 463 times 10 to the power of 6. And that is the amount of data that we will create in 24 hours per human. And I'm talking when we will have 5G, new devices which will be connected to the internet. In June of 2019, there were more than 4.5 billion people online. Today, on average, in Mexico, taking a look at Mexico statistics, every person has around 2 devices. Possibly, the average person has 1 mobile phone and 1 computer. So we are around 125 million people in Mexico, but we have around 175 devices connected to the internet, and that will go twice in the next years. 80% of the digital content is enabled in 9 out of every 10 language. When we're talking about data sets, the data sets are in 4 types. It can be a logical, when, for example, if I get in a data set of data mining in a social media, I can get data set as a logical just to tell me true or false. For example, this profile is in Mexico, true or false. That is, from that, I can create a logical data set, just true and false. Or I can create a numerical by a number. How many females, how many males, how many age groups. Even if it's demographic, it is numerical. I can have a character data set, which only will take in consideration the text of the linguistics that I wanted to capture. For example, if I want to study the behavior of a group, like maybe, I don't know, I don't want to be too radical, by a terrorist group or as insurgency group, I need to look for specific words, like what kind of language they are using. That is a character. So I will use these characters to give me the sum of F, U, whatever, and get those words and collect it. That will be the character. So we have the logical, the numerical, the character, or the integer, which is in another level, where I only focus to have an integers. these data sets, which are in a different format, then I can start to match, to cross, and do analysis. Anyway, this is important because the content that we are producing for when we are online activity, when we post a picture, we post an audio, we post a text, is in a different content. So it's not only voice, it's not only text, it's also video, and it's also pictures that we can analyze with these 4 types of data sets. In 2018, last year, and this is the statistics from Google, every 60 seconds, which is 1 minute in internet, in Google, they process 3.7 millions of queries in 1 second. In 1 minute, which is 1 second. Facebook saw 1 million logins in 1 minute. And YouTube record a 4.5 million of videos played within 1 minute. 1 minute of internet from this activity last year was creating around 40 zettabytes just in 1 minute. Of course, there is a lot of data, which is, as we say, is an abstract. It doesn't tell us anything until we do the data mining, the analysis, and the regressions to understand what's happening there. But that's why today, the data is the most valuable asset for any organization, for any government, and for any person as well. When you lost your phone, you don't worry about the device, you worry about the data that you have in the phone, correct? When someone does ransomware in some critical infrastructure system, they are going for the data because they know the data has the value. They can kidnap possibly a person which isn't the company, but the ransom will not be too high compared to the ransom of having all the databases of the financial sector. And virtually, ironically, it's much more easier because it's much more accessible, because is where the part of cybersecurity is very important, how to protect the data. Where is the classification of the data? Where is the critical data, the mission critical, the mission support, and the administration? We always can deal if someone breach or steal or even corrupt some kind of data because it's not so important, it's not so relevant. Maybe we have copy, maybe we can acquire that data easily, but the problem is when we get hacked into the critical data, into the mission critical and mission support data. That is, can take any business out of business, or any government can be in a very serious problem if someone's hacked into financial system and destroyed or alterate that data. So in these regards, I'm still a student of Steve. So in these regards, so we understand that the data source that we have to collect that abstract metadata is coming from a different systems. It came in some cases from social media or from environmental sensors or operational databases or transactional databases. For example, this evolution of data, it has been so fast and so quick. So we had, in some point, transactional data, which is the data that we produce. How many pizzas did you sell today and how many sodas did you sell? That is our transactional data. And our operational data is the data that we have for, well, because I sold 20 pizzas and 5 sodas, I need to restock and order these new elements. That is the operational and transactional data. But with that data, I can't do forecasting because, first of all, it doesn't keep my historical data. That's why this bottom line of data source is all abstract. So when we do the data aggregation, when we say, okay, we will collect the data of, for example, how many people this month came to renew passports? Where are they? Who are they? What is their preference? Possibly with a small quiz or a small form that they filled it up when they take the renewal of the passport. So you get that data, which is the aggregating data, which becomes like in a 4 types. This has to be a collection of integrated, because you have to integrate different systems. It has to be non-volatile. That data can be non-volatile. You have to structure and say, well, this is David Smith, and it's David Smith which born in the 1st of March. So you can't change that. It's non-volatile. It has to be also time varying, because when he entered the first time, he was 40 years old, but the next year, that person will be 42 years old. So the database needs to identify, or the machine learning algorithm needs to identify that is time varying, that this data you capture today will change with the time some parameters, but still non-volatile. So we say it is integrated, is time varying, non-volatile, and it is a non-homogeneous data. So it is not from the same source, it's from a multiple source. In that data aggregation, it is the biggest challenge for the analyst, because 80% of the time, the analyst or the data scientists spend the time organizing that data, because it comes in a different formats. Sometimes the first name and the last name, sometimes the last name, the first name, sometimes a data point, which is a person. When I said a data point can be a person, can be a behavior, can be a preference, can be a trend. Well, that data point, first of all, has elasticity. It can change. And also has different parameters, different values. That's why we say that for be successful in the mission or in the task or in the business, we need to identify which are those important attributes that we need to deal with to be able to create a good forecast. So the data exploration refers, once we have the extract, we have the transform, is when we do all the transformation or the algorithms, they start to do all that cluster segmentations. Then we do extract, transformation, and load. That load is when we load that data into systems, which is called support vector machine, which is a version of a neural network. How that works. I don't know if you have here the word generated adversarial network. So this is an algorithms that you feed that data in a transform form, in a human context that we know what we are looking for. So when you load that into this neural network, you let the machine to automatically to run the data sets, regardless if that data set is logical, is character, is integer, or is numerical. The system has 2 neural networks. You set up what are the parameters. Like when you go to Google and you search for an address of a restaurant, what that is doing in the back is exactly that, the support vector machine. It's taking the text, which is a character, that you send back to the backend, which is run with some platform, which is called Hadoop. And Hadoop start to compare A plus B plus C plus blah, 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 means this. That's why when you get it wrong on Google, it tells you what is the possibly correction. Or when you use Google Translate, when you put identify the language, and it translates in the best possible way. Because that is the 2 neural network, very quick, can compute very easy small data set. If you wanted to translate, how are you? My name is Israel. It is very straightforward. It's very few characters. That can give you a query really back to say in English, hello, how are you? My name is Israel. But don't underestimate that how many people will be using Google Translate in 1 minute? Not only Israel, right? Because we are talking about the world. So it's a lot of people using that. And this is where the clustering, according to the geolocation, Google pick up in the first place? So where is this computer logged in? In Mexico, in India, Russia, China? Well, in China it's no Google, sorry. but it pick up the GPS and it says, oh, this GPS geolocation is coming from Mexico. So I will take a look what really wants to say. So it compares the back end and say, well, Israel didn't mean this name. This A is wrong. It's a misspell. I will autocorrect. And then the search engine optimization, what we call SEO, will compare the frequency of that query. And the system, the neural network, will back and will say, 10,000 people have made this query. So the probability that Israel is talking about this is high because we have, compared to the other ones, is low. And this is how Google can translate at a very good level and also can give you the locations of what places you are looking for. But every time you do that, what you are doing, you are feeding the algorithms because the data that you input stays there. You don't put the data, you delete from your browser, but the data is in the back end. The same thing happened with Alexa and with Siri. Every time you use those devices, what you are doing is you giving more data to those algorithms that they can learn more about you. And that value of that data, it is really what is the most valuable asset. Well, in the machine learning, it is divided in two parts. Machine learning, in one side, is the artificial intelligence, and in the other side is the support vector machine. The support vector machine has two divisions. One is the statistical analysis. By statistics, we need to learn. For example, do you remember when you were a kid and you were at home and you hear someone is coming? Sometimes you can identify who was your mom and who was your dad, just by the noise, right? We compute that data because as a human, in an environment that we have control and it's small data, we can get that patterns. We also can see far away a figure, a human figure, without to recognize the face, but just by seeing the body and how that person walk, we can say, oh, this is Steve, or it's my uncle, or it's on, because we can recognize this pattern, correct? So what we do in this big data, in the part of machine learning, in the division of support vector machine, it gets all this sensor data. And what it used to compute, and this is where it really gets interesting for the guys that like mathematics, gets very abstract. Imagine that to understand anything as a human, we need to decrease the complexity because we can deal with more than 7 processes. I can compute one multiplication, but if you give me 20 by memory without pen and paper, I will start to struggle, okay? Well, what machine learning does, it creates a multidimensional, which is called hyperplanes. And hyperplanes is like this. We all remember the Rubik's Cube, okay? The Rubik's Cubes, it has 16 faces, correct? Yeah, 6 minus 1. Yeah, 6 faces, correct? Every plane, we will call each face, we will call a plane. Every plane has to, the game is like every plane has to keep the same color. So imagine like you have this 3 dimension and you start to mix. So you're gonna have points yellow, red, orange, green, and so on, the colors. But they're very disorganized. If you pick up that Rubik's Cube and you see it from this perspective, I will see this data. But if I turn it, I will see another data. And if I turn it back, I will see another data. So in hyperplanes, it's like we have all that abstract data that is coming from internet, from transactional databases, operational databases, even from demographic databases. So we have all these world of data points, but every point is a different color. And we not only have like six colors or 10 colors, we have possibly 100 colors. And we need to analyze that. So what artificial intelligence does by the support vector machine, it cuts that figure, multidimensional, in few dimensions. And they say, I want to see only from this dimension because this is my important variables and my relevant variables, because that is the attributes that I need to be able to predict or to forecast this event, correct? So what it does, once it has this part, it can run a linear regression, like the linear regression we ran before. In the past, we called linear regression analysis. Now we call lasso, because it's the least shrink. She knows. I like when someone says, yes, that's right, because she can say, yeah, he's right or he's wrong. The selected operator. And what it does, from that data, it segmentates in a different parts, and it starts to do the assembly. And this is when you use your telephone, and 2 hours later, you receive a notification what is around you. The other day, I was in Denver, and I called my friend, and I said, I'm in town. Maybe we go for a dinner tonight. Within 2 hours, I get a Google notification asking me the question, what is for dinner today? I saw it, and I said, oh, wow, that's good. And then right away says, this is the top 10 recommendations of restaurants around where you are, right? But it's exactly this is the process. Imagine, like in a diplomatic perspective, imagine like you are in an embassy in some country. If you want to do intelligence, like the normal intelligence, you probably will get newspaper, magazines, read the news, and you will have like few source of data that you can have between video, text, radio, so you have that data. As a human, you can compute and you can see what is the tendency. But you are getting, which we call biased data, because there is not independent and it's not neutral data. So that data is coming from social media. I mean, I didn't mention social media, but it's coming from the traditional media, traditional radio, and that has a line, has a political line. In some countries, well, in China or in Russia or in Iran, is very, as you know, is very strict. But if in that regards, you do an analysis for intelligence in that information, your forecast will be biased to what you have, because the data that you get is the analysis that you will get out. Bad input, it will be bad output. But if in that data that you have, that is traditional media, you add the metadata from what is the sentiment analysis in the social media, what is the comments in Google about this specific event, you start to compute that metadata, and I guarantee that your conclusion as an analyst will be very, very different. And this is where the analyst has to be very intuitive to select the right data, select the right attributes to do their analysis. So this is where is the main, for those ones that like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and big data analytics, this is in a very high level. There is some people agree, some people doesn't agree, but this is what you need. You don't need to be expert in this thing. That is the nice part, because computers became much more easy to deal with. When Steve and we start to do programming, well, I didn't use the punch cards, but I'm sure like, but he did. And that was, exactly. And that was complex and difficult, and you have to come up with something like this, right? And then the students only replace the top one with the name, and everyone's get A. That's correct? Okay. And when I start with MATLAB. Fortran, formula translation. Wow. Used to run one simple linear regression or Fourier transform. Wow. It was a challenge. The library didn't work. You have to run the script. There was no way that will give you a warning that your syntax was wrong, correct? and you spend time and time and time, and then you find out like you miss a comma or you miss a colon, and it was painful. Thanks God or thanks technology, it's so easy. I mean, now you get like Hadoop, which is free. You get R, you get R, which is free. You only set up your background environment, and you can change the colors. And the system will tell you what is an array, which is a number, which is a logical variable, which is so on. Even if you mistake, it tells you right away, you're missing a column, you're missing a quote, you're missing blah, blah, blah. So programming, just between us, don't tell to the boss. We need to make the difficult to look easy and the easy to look difficult, right? But it's simply, it's more easier to do it. But what is really important, and I always emphasize, is that we need to understand the theory. Because if we don't understand the theory, where it's coming from, our models will be very wrong. That's what I say to those that want to experience in big data analytics and intelligence. It is worth to get a course in probability and statistics just to refresh. When I'm gonna use this distribution, and when I'm gonna use this distribution, I can use a continuous distribution, or I can use a discrete distribution. Because now, yes, you get the data set. The data sets will be collected by a Python. Python will give me that data. I will select which are my attributes and variables that I wanted to analyze for a specific mission statement, and I can run. And then I can do the histogram. In the histogram, I can see how it looks, those points, what is the distribution. I can see like possibly, maybe it's a kind of normal distribution, like the Gaussian, uniform, symmetric, or maybe I can find out like in Mexico and Latin America, all our population distribution is skewed. The normal distribution of the population in the United States is completely different to the Mexico and to Latin America, and except of one state in the United States, in Utah, okay? In Europe, it's an skew distribution, but in the other side. And I like to make sometimes question. Any idea why from Mexico to South America, we have a skew normal distribution, a skew distribution towards this side? Any idea? And we're studying human behavior, but with data, right? Well, I guarantee that most of us, our parents, they have 7 brothers. In the times of our fathers and grandmother, due to the religion, Catholic, it was like many kids, right? In the case of my family, in my father's side, they were 7, and in my mother's side, they were 13, right? But in the next generation, it was like 2 kids, 1 kid, and some none, correct? And then before the generation, that was also many kids. So that's why today we have a skew distribution. In the other, in Utah, in the United States, is very similar, this population distribution. Why? What is very specific for Utah? Religion. The Mormons. Mormons, they have big families. So they are like we were back in the 50s, because possibly for me, my father born in the 40s, in 1945, and my mother in 1940. So at the end of the day, all this, what we do is to try to understand what the data is telling us from a human activity, correct? When we see those data points distribute, then is when we have good knowledge in probability and statistics, then we can say, oh, this is not exactly a K2 skew distribution, but I'm very sure that if I put more data, I'm gonna make it look like that, right? That's why as much data we have, but in the right place at the right time, is gonna tell you a lot about that, okay? So you don't need to be an expert or to have a PhD in Python or PhD in SAS or PhD in R, but you need to understand how to use it and what is the theory behind. Now, in this big data and artificial intelligence, well, the first part that has to be solid understanding is computer science. The second one is statistics, because at the end of the day, you are collecting samples. How many samples are you gonna collect? And what kind of sampling you gonna do? You gonna do a stratification of the data or you don't? Now, for example, talking about populations in Latin America, we have as I say, around a Q2, we have done projects for Guatemala, for Mexico, and we have seen a lot of similarities, especially from Guerrero, Oaxaca, Campeche, Tabasco, Quintana Roo, Mérida, Yucatan, and Guatemala. That is like the same, it's like the same thing, okay? It seems to be like they so link it, the logical attributes. But you will see like you have a short population in the 18th up to the 20s, in that range. And then you have a big population, like the fat population became from the 25 to the 45s. And then it dies out, and then you have a huge peak right here, which is the more than 65 years old, which is our parents and, you know, like we call in Mexico, I was, someone bring to my attention that don't say the other word that I have to say in Mexico for legal. I have to say, personas de juventud avanzada y algo más. Is that right? Yes or no? Yeah? Yeah, it's like now in gender, it's a legal issue. You can, well, that's what they advise me. Like I can say personas de la tercera edad, que se debe de decir personas de juventud avanzada y más. ¿Correcto? Well, that's what I was advised, but adultos mayores, yeah. Well, but anyway, in this distribution, right? So when we recognize that patterns, then we can say, I'm gonna use this probability distribution, which means, like if you randomly, if you wanted to understand a behavior, a collective behavior in that population, can be, for example, a political tendency, can be a consumption habit or whatever, and you randomly choose, you're gonna get the wrong data. Your data will be biased because you have a big fat population here, which represents possibly the 85%, and the other data is very small. So if you randomly choose, it is a high probability that you're gonna get this data, the fat data. What you need to do is just to stratify, do a stratification of the data to say, because I can't get the whole sample of the universe, I'm just gonna get 10% or less percent, but by stratification, by groups, that then I can currently say this is the behavior. Because if I go right now, and I think this is a valid example, but if I go right now outside of the office building of a specific party and I run a survey or a data analysis, that's gonna be very biased to where I am. So, but if I go to the other side in another building which represents the other party and I run a test there, my data will be very different, correct? So I can be biased. So we need to be very unbiased when we're selecting the data, and we need to know how, statistically speaking, we're gonna trade that data, because we have to trade it in a different way. And well, the mathematics part is because we need to do regression analysis, we need to do lasso, we need to measure the dispersion between the points, we need to measure the elasticity of the data points. One person, most of the time is good, but eventually is bad, or do another activities. And that is elasticity. There is no good and there is no bad. We all are good sometimes and bad sometimes. A little bad and a lot of bad. Depends. That is elasticity of the point. One day you feel happy and the other day you feel unhappy. That is, from a metadata perspective, for human activity, behavior, and understanding, that is called elasticity. So that point. And you measure that with a partial differential equations because you need to trade some of the variables, constants. When you trade those as a constant, very much a derivative of one constant is equal to 0, because you only care about the rate of change of x with respect to y. If you download that from multi-dimension to two-dimension. That's why mathematics is important. Well, I'm biased to make these comments, right? Because I like mathematics and I like computer science. But to be fair, communications, at the end of the day, is the most important. because you can have a fantastic analysis. You know, you can be able to predict some behavior or some crisis or some incident because you have enough data to say within 6 months we're gonna be in this situation. But if you don't know how to communicate and how to make a good report out of that, your analysis is to the trash, right? And even worse, if you don't know how to deal with the crisis communications, with the crisis management, with the crisis leadership, which is completely another area, you will be in the black swan, which we call the dark of the dark of the dark, right? This is very interesting subject because it's so interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary that you need a lot of elements. It can be geopolitics, it can be mathematicians, statistics, actuarios, and so on. That's why communication part, even if they say only is 18%, I would say that at the end of the day is the most important, to be fair. Economic and social science is very important because we are talking mainly about 4 types of data. Psychographic, which is collective human behavior, which also has a probability, a conditional probability. So if everyone here is drinking wine and having fun and smiling, what is the probability that me entering to this room, I will behave like this? So it's the probability increments a lot, right? It's when we said, el ambiente me absorbió, ¿correcto? O como decía la abuela, el que se junta con lobos. Exacto. With the Mexicans, very good in this. So, dime con quién andas. That's so, is mathematically speaking, from conditional probability, is dime con quién andas y te diré quién eres. In fact, when you do metadata analysis in an objective on a person, you will learn more about that person of who they are, their friends. If you go directly to that person, you will have a biased data because the person will tell you what you want to hear, right? Will tell you, very good, absolutely. But you go and talk to my ex-wife or talk to my friends, and then you're gonna have a better perception of who is Israel, right? So that is unbiased data. So that's why the social science, which also calls the social psychology, social behavior, that has a big deal into this. For example, John Nash, he won the Nobel Prize. He was a mathematician, but he studied economics, right? And he get the award because he created the Nash equilibrium, which is a strategy about game theory. How do I can get a better position from my strategic negotiation and so on. That is social science, economics, and psychology. And very little about mathematics, right? To those ones that have seen the prisoner's dilemma, you can say, well, this is quite straightforward, right? Of course, then you put more variables and it gets more complex, but that is economics, social science, and social psychology. So it's very important to be able to understand this. You don't have to be a PhD in these areas, but you need to understand, because at the end of the day, you are doing analysis of human activity, and every human activity is towards what? A satisfaction, right? A personal satisfaction. But that personal satisfaction, 90% of the time, it talks about a economic reward, correct? Because we live in a world where we need money to be able to survive. We need to buy food, we need to buy a house, to have transportation. So all human activity is towards self-interest and economic. And that's why economy, social science are key for this. Otherwise, you're gonna have data, you're gonna come up with a forecast, and it's no idea, right? And well, the engineering part, this is also the fun part, my favorite. Engineering part is because a good data scientist needs as we say, computer science, mathematics and statistics, communication, social science, economy. But what else a good data science need and a person, an analyst? What? Ideas. Very good, ideas. I want to see something more, not much of soft power, but a hard power. Tell me. No? No? Did you see, did you guys have here an article which says, "Goodbye, James Bond, welcome big data"? Right? Did you see the last James Bond movie? Right? What was his expertise? Spy. But what he used? Information. And how he hits the information? What? Gadgets. But how they get the gadgets? Who was behind?
The government.
But specifically, one specific skill. Come on, guys. But well, espionage, cyber espionage. But who can do that?
Women.
Yeah, well, they can be good. Women, yeah, they're very good. In the Soviet times, they were fantastic. Hackers, right? That is the engineering part. You have to be hacker to be able to hack. Let me clarify. Hacking is not going without permission. Hacking is like get around to get data, okay? There is a big difference. We talk about white hat hack and black hack and so on. The reality that the word hack is like hacker, it means like I get my way around to get some information, like social engineering, right? We talk now about hacking the human mind. Have you heard that concept? So it's like psychological operations, disinformation, manipulation, social media. That is called hacking the human mind, correct? Well, a hacker, in this James Bond, that's exactly right? They hack from open source data, okay? Get the data and then do the analysis of the data. Because I'm gonna tell you what, if you go and ask for the data, you can go now and I bet you $1,000, go with Google, Facebook and say, can you share your data with me? They will say no, because by law I can't do that, right? But I will tell you this. If the person posts in a Facebook and you have a profile in a Facebook and you go and see what that person posts and name, last name, and birthday, because Facebook will send you a notification when it's your birthday. Right away, you get PII, which is called Personal Identifiable Information. With that PII, you can compute what's his SAT, curve, correct? I can even go a free Google website to tell me the curve of a person, first name, last name, birthday, and it's gonna give it to you, right? That is hack, but it's not doing nothing against the law, correct? First of all the terms of use of social media, they say that any content that you put up there, it becomes public domain, correct? We're clear on that, right? So if I have a Python software that will go and will give me all that sample of specific attributes and have it back to me, it's a hack, but it's not illegal hack. Not all the hacks are illegal. It will be illegal if someone's hacking to the device and go in, and that is called cyber espionage. But the other thing is no, but it will take you to the same place. You're getting the data, correct? So that's why that is a very important skill. How do we can create libraries which are free, Python, TweetPy, you can Google it. That enables you to run the algorithm and to run queries and have all that information. Probably, if I tell to some of the audience, show me your Facebook, she or he will say, why, right? But behind the scenes in my computer, I can get me all these interested profiles. So that's why engineering part, it should say hacking, but people are so scared of that word. Okay, So we agree that data science is a new field, kind of. It's just a lot of data, but it's the same thing we have been using. So it has a domain of expertise. So at the end of the day, your intuition, it will be the best. Okay? Human intuition cannot be replaced. But if you use your human intuition plus this technology, well, you will be more sophisticated, and your forecast and your analysis will be more important. That's why today, in the real world, and like in James Bond movie, the most valuable person in an agency is the analyst, because that person can get the data, analyze the data, and tell you where the threats are coming and from where. And then you work with the crisis management team and the reaction team to be able to create contingency planning and to be able to create a better policies that will mitigate the risk of what is happening here. So this is your motto of the quantitative analysis or analytics or artificial intelligence or whatever you want to call it. And the communication part, it has to arrive to this end. Otherwise, if we're talking about a government or a company, it's going to be hacked. It will repeat, and then it is no contingency, it's no containment, it is no dissemination of that situation. And sometimes it's where the technical people miss that, doesn't know how to use communication to pass to the right team, because everyone is expert in some area. It's just working together. So communication part, domain of expertise, you need to know what is your domain of expertise. I guess in this institution, well, you focus on the soft power, right? The guys from defense will focus on another power, right? In the hard power. It is important to use data ethics because you will discover and you will see a lot of things that you didn't want to see. So sometimes you have a target, you have a mission, you get the data, and when you are working in that data, surprise, you always will find a lot of things. It's like if I go and ask you for your device. I have a perception about you, but if you give me your device and I see your WhatsApp and your social media and your bank account, then I will have another perception of you, correct? So sometimes you go for one specific object and you ending knowing more. And that's why you need to apply data ethics. In some parts, there is regulation. In some parts, there is no regulation. All depends in the way or in what tools you use to acquire the data. For example, if I ask you directly in a demographic survey, give me your name, last name, and your birthday, and your address, and I have that information, and I sell that information to someone that is interested, I have liabilities. In the United States, there are 3 types of law. They have the tort law, which is like injury laws, like I can have liability because I got your data and I sold your data. That tort law can apply to me, and also criminal. So statutory law and common law. So, but if I get the data by doing data mining and social media and all what you posted there, I have no liability. I can get that data and become a data broker and sell that data, and it's not illegal. There is no law which says that. So that is a very fine line, one, in between how you get the data and how you use that data. And that is the part of the ethics that you have to have as professional person with moral capacity, and what legislation currently will apply to this, okay? And, well, computer science, data visualization, so we all like visualization, so statistics, probability, machine learning, and so on. The data type of an attribute can be, yeah, sorry. Also, okay. Thanks, Steve. Wow, I'm gonna fail this test. It's so bad to bring the the person you work with, because I'm gonna fail since I finish the class. Well, the data type of an attribute, as we say, can be numerical, can be nominal, can be ordinal. Effects of the method we can use to analyze and understand the data. The data will tell us a story, but it is our responsibility to have very crystal clear what we are looking for. Because if we don't know what we are looking for, we're gonna get the wrong data. For example, can you imagine I'm go to a warehouse like Costco, and all the products are in the floor, and I wanted to make a cake. I'm gonna spend a day or a week trying to find all the products because they are disorganized, they are all in the floor. It will be impossible. When I go to Costco now, they have the products organized by logical, right? All the products from milk and so on are in this aisle. All the products about flour and so on are in this aisle. So I need to organize that, but with some purpose. Sometimes I'm gonna use this data. Sometimes this data is completely irrelevant for me, and I don't need to use it because it will give me an entropy or will give me a noise, and it will be more complex. It will increase the complexity problem. So in this one, mission understanding, data understanding. I'm gonna finish very quick just with this slide, and then I will give you a copy of this, so like you can, and if you have questions, you can back to me. But this is, in general, the big part of mission understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation, and going in that cycle until you have the deployment. When you run your variables, your hypothesis testing, and then you say, yeah, we get it right, okay? Well, I will give you copy. We are running out of time, so I want to respect the time of everyone. But if you have only 2 minutes or 1 minute for quick questions, I will provide this copy of this presentation.
Okay, so somewhat of a different topic. We're going to talk about crisis management, crisis communication. So fundamentals, roles and responsibilities, crisis communications, crisis leadership. I will summarize, and I expect a standing ovation from all of you. Okay. Since I teach at MIT, I am forced to give you a quiz that's in my contract. There will be a quiz later on. Oh, I get it. That's me, 15 years ago. But I do have 2 degrees in engineering from MIT. I got out of that. I spent years as an engineer. Then I got to nuclear emergency planning, then corporate emergency planning. I've been a spokesperson, manager media relations. I can't keep a job, so I've been all over the place. But I enjoy it now. So now I consult as well. With MIT, they want teachers to go out and talk to people, not just sit and read from a book. So I'm going to learn as much from you as you are from me, hopefully. Okay, so that's why I can. This is 3 buttons. I'm not used to this, so I will use my engineering background. So if you want to put your front legs out, that'd be fine. If not, that's fine too. Again, I apologize. My Spanish consists of 2 words: yes, no, and when's dinner. Okay, so I take this course from a class I teach at MIT, Business Continuity Crisis Management, and then my friends over at Harvard, National Preparedness Leadership Institute. So we work together on a lot of projects. So the 2 best schools in the world, I think. Okay, so I'm going to briefly talk about crisis management fundamentals. You can read that. Crisis is essentially complex and unexpected event. Instability damages the threat risk to the company, in your case the government, and the people, in your case the population. Now, the thing with crisis, it's not just one system, it's not just one event or one type. If you think about it, fire, emergency response, absolutely. IT, cybersecurity, if you get hacked, if you get ransomware, that is a crisis. Business continuity, if one of the buildings in this campus goes down, where do you relocate? What do you do? What buildings do you use? So business continuity. True crisis management, a legal problem, an operational problem, a scandal, could be a crisis management. Everything's working fine, but you get a public crisis. Crisis communications, dealing with all your people internally, externally, the news media, and now the social media. Policy with your, from the president on down, could become a crisis for the diplomats. A department crisis, a Ministry of Foreign Affairs crisis, an embassy crisis. An embassy we'll talk about later, local or you people or something outside your embassy. That could be considered a crisis. And guess what? The newest flavor of the day, pandemic. But I've written pandemic plans like 15 years ago, H5N1 first came out. So a lot of my clients come along and say, hey, is this good? Yeah, just update your plan and your communications list. Everything should be fine. Okay. This one's kind of interesting because, at least up in the United States, they are making, okay, we have an election going on this year, as you may well know. So all the politicians are making fodder for the fire, I guess, out of this. And like, politics aside, they're blaming President Trump for the virus. It's like, come on, guys, I mean, get real. But these are the types of things you have to deal with in a crisis. You don't like it, it's not realistic, but it's there, so you have to deal with it. So, in preparing for a crisis, before you have one, you can determine a lot of the elements. The who, the what, the where. The only thing you don't know is when. And there's going to be a when. You're all going to go through a crisis, professionally, if not personally, in your lives. Guarantee it. Okay? So the basic tenet of crisis management is that your day-to-day operations are good, but they're not set up for a crisis. You need to devote special people, special resources to deal specifically with the crisis. Do we have any communications people in here? Public affairs talking that? Okay? Well, sorry?
Community manager?
Community manager, okay. If something happens now, and you need to get word out to the public, how long will it take you to develop a statement, get it approved and out?
5 minutes.
10 minutes.
Whoa! Hold on.
10 minutes.
You're kidding me. This is great because usually it's like, half a day. Gotta go through approvals. You get the lawyers involved. I had one company said to me, you want us to approve a one-page press statement. We can't get our executives to agree on 288 characters. So it's like, okay, te saludo if you can do that.
Because you have a table of contents that
Yep.
you have agreed before with your client.
Right?
So in advance of that, maybe I was too short about saying 5 minutes, but you prepare everything before and you
Yes.
state about what you have, a planning map.
Yep.
And afterwards, that's why it's so easy because you have already the agreement and the negotiation, whatever you need before. But,
Perfect.
If we're doing it mechanically,
Yeah.
it's like 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Great. You pass.
Thank you.
So you have to take the quiz. Excellent. So she's got the thing set up to go in crisis mode. The rest of the organization, the technical organization, the IT organization, same thing. You have to get that set up. Okay? Now, this is the weird thing about crisis management. It's not a science. It's very soft, to use your terminology. Use common sense when you're developing your crisis plans and you're implementing. Common sense. And then adapt everything I say to your specific organization, your department, your embassies. Because again, adapt. I give you basic principles, but you have to adapt them to your organization. Okay. Guess what? Oh, come on. There we go. When, not if, when you have a crisis, you've got no option. You got to play the game. You can run away, you can appoint someone, but it's still going to be your responsibility. And how you handle it can make you or break you. I've seen more executives, more CEOs, more ministers get fired for screwing up a crisis than anything else. Right? They should have been prepared. Communication is generally the toughest part. I'll talk about that later. And then possible outcomes. Now, you're not going to be put out of business. The diplomatic corps is not going to be fired. Oh, no, that's not true. You won't be put out of business. You might be fired, but the department will go on. Right? You're injured, you're embarrassed, you're disliked. That's an option. You survive, and you move on. And it's a very few select cases where people were prepared and did the right thing. They came out ahead. So you have a crisis, so sometimes you can come out ahead with proper planning. It's not going to be fun. Okay? It is not going to be fun. We'll have some fun up here, I hope. And I take what I do very seriously. This is very serious stuff. All right? Now, this is, if I were to give you a homework assignment or a final exam, this would be on it. Basically, the key expectation of the government is that you guys are prepared to respond to an event. Why do you think you elected them? Why are you paying taxes? You can't say we didn't expect it, we should have expected it. You can't say we weren't prepared. What? Why did I vote for you? Why are you taking my tax money? Why weren't you prepared? Now this is not political. I'm just telling you outright. I say this to every government on the planet. Well, listen to me. They should be prepared. That is one of the functions of government. You in the diplomatic corps, you're going to be one of the key communicators to all your to all your countries about what the government's doing. So we're going to talk about the concept of teamwork and coordination a little later on. Okay? Other things we expect the government to do, including all you as government officials, leadership. Follow it through. Teamwork. Communicate. Deal with the human side of a crisis. If you have a very serious flood, event, pandemic, where people are affected, deal with the human side. Turkey had a huge earthquake, I don't know, several years ago, and the government just did not respond to the people. And to this day, they still, again, I don't do politics, but there's still some ramifications, because the people didn't come first. What else we got? Unaffected operations have to continue, so your embassy in Canada is falling apart. The rest of the Corps has to keep going. Until normal operations. Follow up, rebuild your people, rebuild your organization. So again, it's not going to be fun, but you got to prepare for it. How many people have Facebook? How about WhatsApp? Both, right. Does Facebook still do walls? They have the walls. Years and years ago, my brother's sister, my brother's wife, my sister-in-law set up Facebook pages for everybody in the family, so we could find out about her daughter skating and what kids are doing. You know, she set one up for me. She did not tell me. So for 2 years, I had a Facebook page, and she would populate the stuff about me. No idea. So my friends are emailing me and say, "Hey, idiots, can't leave the yachts. I posted this stuff on your wall, you never answered me. What's going on? What's wrong with you?" Honest to God, I went out in my backyard, I looked at my wall, and there was nothing posted. I had no idea. So when it comes to crisis communications, one of the things we'll talk about is knowing the tools that you have and using them appropriately, all right? To this day, I still get grief from friends about, "You actually went outside and looked at your wall, huh?" Yeah, I did. That's not on the quiz. But this is. Technically, say you have a crisis and you do a great job. Everything works out fine. However, communicating it to the government, to the public, to the media went poorly. So technically, you did a good job, but your communications effort went real poor. What's your overall perception? What's going to be the overall perception of your response from the world? Louder. You didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So technically you do a great job, you don't communicate it well, you're going to fail. That's why communications are so important. That's why communication is so important. Come on, man. Here we go. Okay. So what do you have to do? Come up with a communications plan. Now also a crisis plan, but within your organization, and as you said, you've already started, you've got one going. Excellent. All right? Come up with a strategy. You know, you don't need to notify everybody at the exact same time, although the technology is there. You may want to notify, the president first, the cabinet, the senators, and then the media and the public. Set up that priority string in your communications plan. Now, if something happens, mark now, 11:25, and something goes on in there's a crisis, how long will it be before the public knows about it? So it's 11:25, and what time will the public know? I would say 11:26. With social media, and even people on your own staff, "Hey, we just got this blah, blah, blah." Okay? So you can't wait. That's why I asked about, how soon it takes you to get a news statement out. There are still PR firms, and companies who think, oh, we've got like an hour. No. You've got 5 minutes to get a word out saying, we have a situation, we know about it, we'll get back to you as soon as we can. So you've established yourself, you're up front, you're ahead of the game. Okay. So you're planning your strategy. And be prepared, it's going to come. We're getting grief again. I told you, President Trump's getting blamed for the virus. All right? I mean, it's absurd, but that's the type of stuff you're going to deal with. Practice, realistically run drills and training, your crisis management team as well as your communication team. She says she can get out in 5 minutes, I want to see that. I put you through a drill. I put your department through a drill. Say, okay, it's 11:25. A small plane landed in your embassy front yard. What are you going to do? Let's see, get that. I don't mean just out. I mean approved, written, approved, and out. Okay, I'm picking on you because you answered. You see why grad students don't talk. Okay? But you see my point. I mean, it's an excellent. Again, thank you. What else we got? And then you have to lead. If you fall behind in communications, you fall behind in response, you're never going to catch up. So you got to get out in front of it. It's going to be painful. But my slogan has always been, take a small hit now rather than a large hit later, because you're going to get hit. So take a small one now, be in control, instead of a big one later. You're going to get me one of these. Okay, pop quiz. Who's going to be your worst enemy in a crisis? Could you put the light up again, please? I spent so much time stealing these pictures from the internet. I'm in academia, I can do that. I'm allowed. Okay, thank you. Who's going to be your worst enemy in a crisis? Bingo. Yourself. Yourself. We have met the enemy and he is us. So make the preparations, plan, get yourselves out of the way so you're not stumping over your own 2 feet. Preparation. Okay, now. What I do, I always have a glass of water with me when I do this. And, well, no, actually, it's not. I have liquid with me. And I actually did some research on this. So when you're up in front of a crowd, it's always good to have a glass, because if you ask me a question, I can buy a couple seconds. No one's going to argue. I'm taking water. If I'm sitting there drinking, then you know something's up. But just to buy a couple of seconds to clear your brain, that's fine. So I did some research, and hot liquids are not good because they strip your epithelial cells. Okay? Cold liquids are not good because they tend to constrict your epithelial cells. And milky liquids are not good because they tend to cover your epithelial cells. So you want a clear, room temperature liquid. Mezcal. And the longer I talk, the smarter I get. Only in Mexico. And up here it's vodka. Here it's mezcal. And the good stuff. Seriously, this is serious. I just like to have a good time doing this. Trust. This is a huge part of crisis communications. If I'm up here, you don't trust me. If you're giving a talk, I don't trust you, it's over. I'm not going to listen. Okay? So you can be an expression of confidence between two parties, blah, blah, blah. High trust is proportional to low perceived risk. So if I trust you talking about the pandemic, and you say it's a low risk, I'm going to believe you. If I don't trust you, you say it's a low risk, I'm not believing you. Trust is important. Now, these are some of the components of trust. Technical expertise, objectivity, you can read all that. So, a good friend of mine, Dr. Cavell from Columbia, put together this test. Now, this is another quiz. Now, do you all have pencils and papers anymore? Do you still use those things?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There's a quiz. Trust and credibility can be considered to be made up of 4 parts. Technical expertise and competence, honesty and openness, commitment and devotion, empathy and caring. Now, if we're talking about big data, don't trust me, I can even use Facebook. Him you trust because he's got the technical expertise. When you're talking about crises in general, social topics, emotional topics, these are the 4 characteristics. Now, what I want you to do is you guess how much each of these count towards trust. So if you think they're all the same, 25, 25, 25, 25, they add to 100%. If you think technical expertise is easily half of building trust, then, 50 and 25 and 10 and 5, whatever numbers they're up to. So take a couple minutes, come up with some numbers. I'm gonna drink some water. You can talk, it's an open quiz, talk among yourselves.
But is it the same if it is a company or government? I think the factors that.
Okay, the question is it the same if it's a company or government? Yes. This is overall generic. Again, adapting to your situation. If it's a question about technical stuff, it's not, because technical credibility is different. It's like overall credibility for a spokesperson in general. Okay?
Is this related to the type of crisis?
No.
Crisis?
Only that, again, if there's a pandemic and a doctor comes out who's an expert in immunology, we trust him. That's a given. That's a topical trust. Okay? If I go out there and talk about Facebook, forget about it. Okay, but that's a good question. So anyone want to volunteer any numbers? Sir? 50, 50, 0, 0. So 50% technical, 50% honesty, 0 for commitment, 0 for everything caring. Okay, those are good numbers. Anyone else?
I have 40% on the expertise in the patents
Okay.
and 20 for the rest.
I make sure they add up, so.
Yeah.
So
40, 20,
40,
20, 20.
20, 20, and 20.
Yeah.
Top down, sir?
25, 20, 20, and 35.
35, 20, 20, 35 for empathy and
25,
care.
20, 20, and 35. 35.
Ah, 35, 20, 20, 25, okay. Okay. One more, anyone else?
I have 40 in empathy and caring, and then 20.
Really? Why 40 for empathy and caring? 40 for empathy and caring, really?
Yeah.
Over the others? According to Vince's research, oh, come on.
Oops.
There we go. You were close, you were almost there.
52.
52% is empathy and caring. If I don't care about what I'm talking about, if I don't care about you, you're not trusting me. I could be the biggest expert in bad data, whatever he wants to call big data, whatever he wants to call it. But if he doesn't care, then you don't trust him. That's why this is crisis communication so important. Your spokesperson, you can have technical experts, as you said, talking about specific events. But overall, if I don't trust the government, if I don't think my government cares about me, I don't care about them. And worse is I'm not listening to them. If they tell me to evacuate, I'm not listening to those bozos. Again, this is every government on the planet. It teaches every government to listen. All right? That's why this is so important. Okay. There we go. Okay. MIT, I've got to give you at least one model. Be thankful I'm not giving you an equation. So, communications theory, information source, transfer medium, information target. This is easy. What could possibly go wrong? Right? Well, all those things. And that's just so I can show you, just some of them. Things from the spokesperson being nervous to not being trusted to bad timing, negativity. You can read all of ethics. I don't analyze the audience, although in your case that's not really high. Offensive words, sometimes the wrong spokesperson. Oh God, years ago, one of the Dow companies had a breast implant problem. It was dangerous. So who did they put as their spokesperson? An old white guy, okay? A guy. I mean, that's empathy for women, and having some guy come out there talking about a breast implant problem. Just unbelievable. So the model also would be, that's the event, the crisis response team. communications team, and then all your audiences. Again, nice, easy flow model, right? That's more or less the reality. Okay. Now with your embassies and your Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I don't know. I haven't done the research to how you guys do your jobs. But for typical crisis, this is what goes on. And the green arrows are not all, those are the social media arrows. I didn't fill them all in because you wouldn't be able to see anything else. It'd be one big green ball. All right? So that's why it's so hard. And again, just getting the statement written and approved, that's only step number one. And distribution can be a bear. Now, on the other hand, with technologies and software, you can get information out fast. A lot of communication tools out there, which use email, cell phones, iPads, you name it, to get the word out there real fast. So you can use technology in your favor as well as being afraid of it. Okay. I used to be a manager of media relations, and a reporter would tell me, Steve, your worst day is going to be his best day. When I have a crisis, he's going to have a good job. So a crisis sells. Crisis sells. The news media have a job to do it, they're going to do it. Deal with it. It is the way they are. That is their job. I don't like the way he asked that question. Like, too bad. Joe Biden does that, Vice President candidate. I've seen him do that a couple of times. I don't like your question, he says to a reporter, like, that's not my problem, it's yours. Okay. So they have a job to do. Okay, severity of the crisis. You think it's a minor crisis. The news media thinks it's the second coming of God. Who wins? Who wins? The media do. You've got to address it in their terms. Is that fair? No. But it is the way it is. Otherwise, you're going to be considered covering things up, or at best slow. All right. I'm sorry, I'm talking fast. I get passionate about this. I'm trying to slow down. Drink more water. News media coverage will be different if you're the victim as opposed to being the perpetrator. So if someone lands an airplane on your property, you're the victim. If you screw up the communications, all of a sudden you're the perpetrator because you're making things harder. So always look at it that way. It's different. You know, chemical companies, they deal with a chemical company. Oh, we're the victim here. You know, we let loose all these chemicals, so we're the victim. It's like, no, not for the people on that side of the fence. You're the perpetrators. It's your chemical crossing into their property. Oh, we never thought of it that way. That's why I'm here. Okay, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I think I beat that one to death. Anybody with a cell phone is now a reporter. Anybody can go to a scene of a disaster, hold up a camera, and say, "Look, I'm recording this." And that's the first thing you see on the news is someone's cell phone recording the event. So again, plan for that. Be aware of that. We talked about time frame being immediate. This is the worst, is your response can become the story. It's bad enough you have a crisis,
Yeah.
then your response becomes a story. And that you don't want. Okay, Exxon Valdez, Bill Clinton, you name it. All right? And just, you know, whether you're bad enough at the event, then the response compounded the incompetence. The Democrat primary in Iowa was kind of funny from a crisis communications point of view. Again, I don't do politics unless asked. But they were blaming, okay, it happened. Then they started blaming each other. Then they started blaming the software. And then honest to God, a few people started blaming President Trump. And so their response got to be like, this is really ridiculous. But then the Democrats had to deal with that. Not only the problem with that, but dealing with the response. Okay, so just, okay, backwards. There we go. So again, just to emphasize, your response can become the story. Bill Clinton, he was indicted, impeached 20 or so years ago, not for fooling around with an intern in his office. It was for lying about it. So if he had just said, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I was stupid, okay, I'll buy that. And he's a guy, we're all stupid in that regard, okay? But he's lied about it, and he lied about it, and lied about it. Finally, he got caught. That's why he got impeached. I won't even go into Pemex. Okay, they're becoming a classic in the industry of how not to respond to things. So just leave that as it is. Okay, no. Stop. So, can we do some sound on this? Can we do a little sound on this? Sorry, I should have done this before. Okay, so this gentleman's company, he's the CEO, chemical company in West Virginia, had polluted the water supply of the region. Dumped chemicals, he says inadvertently, into the reservoirs of the region. So people were without drinking water for days. Days. No water, no nothing. People were furious. This was one of his press clip, a clip from his press briefing.
It's been an extremely long day. I'm having a lot of trouble talking at the moment. I would appreciate it if we could wrap this thing up. I will.
We actually have a lot of questions, and it's been a long day for a lot of people who don't have water. So can you give us an exact timeline as to how
Look what he did. Can you believe this? Okay. I mean, that clip went viral. I mean, all over the world a gazillion times.
Zero empathy with this.
Yeah, zero empathy. Technically, he might have been the right guy to talk. Can you believe it? Okay. Go into crisis leadership just a little bit. Okay, so five principles of crisis leadership: compassion, dealing with people. I mean, you can read through these. The key thing is assuming responsibility. You won't find that too often in unenlightened companies and unenlightened agencies. Yeah, we had a problem, we're on it. It's our fault, or we're looking to see what it is, but take responsibility for it. Stakeholders, act honestly and ethically. It's going to come out. Whatever you do, if you do something dishonest or immoral or hiding things, it's going to come out. Again, take the small hit now rather than the large hit later. And again, communications. Big thing is communication. Okay, leadership depends upon communication. You can't be a good leader without being a good communicator. Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that Harvard School has come up with. It's called meta leadership. So there's you, the person, surrounded by the situation. Okay. And so what we're talking about is connectivity among all the response elements. Okay. As the leader, and this doesn't mean the president, this is the crisis team leader, this is the individual leaders, anyone's got responsibility, somebody else is essentially a leader. So you lead up, you let your boss, whoever that is, know what's going on. You keep them informed. Now, so I'll do a little political thing here. Any country, in most countries, the president is responsible to whom? The people. So the president has a boss. Here, United States, Canada, whatever. So it is obligated the president to lead up, to keep the people informed. Of course, anyone has to lead down their staff. If you lead across all the agencies that you have, lead across, and then you lead beyond, lead towards the future. So you're not just sitting, you're not managing. Managing is making sure this part fits into this part, tape it up, send it down the line. Making sure that that happens. That's management. You don't care, you want leadership. You need to lead you out of the crisis. You cannot manage your way out of a crisis. That's why leadership is so important. Okay? So I think I just said this. Okay? Up to your boss, down to you as the boss, to your staff, across other units within the foreign agencies department, and then to other organizations. Note the key word, other organizations. Because a huge problem in government is what we call silos, the silo mentality. You're all experts, you're all good at what you do. And I'll pick on IT in particular, they focus on IT, right? They don't realize, hey, system goes down, it's not just a bunch of electrons screwed up. I got people out there who rely on these electrons. And so I always, I get a chance to talk to IT people, get out of that silo and think about beyond. All other departments, good quality people here, but they tend to focus. The session we had a couple days ago, gentleman was responding to the earthquake a couple years ago in Mexico City, and he said this is the problem. Each of the departments was doing a good job, they couldn't communicate across each other, and that's why it fell apart. Okay, so meta leadership is leading up, leading across the silos, making sure the silos communicate with each other, talk to each other. Otherwise, it's going to fail. Okay, I'm going to summarize a couple of points. Okay, decision making, crisis response is all about teamwork. You can't get yourself out of a crisis one person or one department at a time. It is teamwork. Politics, egos, when you walk into the command center, you got to leave politics and ego out the door. Now, someone above you may say, well, we need to make decision A, but politically, we need to make decision B. Okay? That's life. That's the way it is. And sometimes you just got to do that. Is it right? No, but reality comes in. Sometimes we got to do stuff like that. Just document the hell out of it so you don't get blamed for it. But you see where I'm going with this? Sometimes people make the wrong decisions for the right reasons, they think. Not making a decision is a decision. When you don't make a decision, that's your decision. So don't think, I'm not going to deal with this. That's your decision. I'm not dealing with it. That's not good. Crises have distinct factors. A crisis that happens today, same thing could happen next week. It may be different. The response, the events, or whatever, even though it's the same initiating event. So they're time sensitive, they're risk, you can read all that, stress. And a required decision, it could affect the impact, or it could affect the fate of the department, the embassies, even the government. That's just the way it is. Try to have no surprises, so do training, do drills, do exercises. So when people get into the command center, they've done this. So it's the imprint is there in the brain. And I'll repeat it again. Teamwork is communication and coordination. Okay, so these are my summary points. Crisis is going to happen to you. Foreign Affairs Ministry, each of the individual embassies, the sub-departments, it's going to happen. Deal with it. Be prepared. I'm suggesting you have, again, not knowing your system, not knowing what you have, but I grew up in Boston. MFA was the Museum of Fine Arts. Here it's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I keep going, the museum needs to do blah, 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 so you forgive me when I stumble on that. I don't know what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. MOFA.
It's going to use.
Okay, MOFA?
Yeah.
MOFA. Okay. That's another meeting in the United States, so I'll let that go.
I know.
Okay. So MOFA needs to, I don't know what you have. I could be speaking to the choir. I do not know. But make sure the ministry has an emergency plan from the top down, how they're going to communicate up, down, back and forth to all the embassies and whatever. Because if something happens here, you're darn sure your ministry in Borneo is going to want to know what's going on, let alone the United States and the South American countries. Okay? So again, they all have to be involved. I would suggest, again, I don't know what you have. I could be speaking again. You already have this. Each embassy has an emergency plan. Now, you may look at things like operational events and non-operational events. That's fine. But I'd go to the next level, something that's real serious. Organization, set up an organization. Who's in charge? Usually, I would assume the ambassador. He or she may not be your best person to lead the crisis response team. He or she may need to be talking to the president of the MOFA, the minister himself, him or herself. So again, personnel, you got to check your personnel. Ambassador is probably not the right person to lead the response team. Backup for each position. So the ambassador's on vacation, he's here, he or she's here. The incident occurs out in France. Who's running the show in France? Okay, how are you going to gather information, process it, distribute it? Not only communication information, but just event information. How is that set up? Something happens in France, how did the embassy in Argentina learns about it? Can I have that system set up? Again, I don't know what you have, so that's something I would look into. Okay, address these issues now. Pandemic, cyber events. Pandemic and cyber events. In a pandemic, you plan for maybe 1/3 of your staff being out. Are you guys prepared for that? I don't know. Talk to your bosses. When, I'll pick on you again since you volunteered. You
Yes, of
see
course.
why you don't volunteer in grad
You
school?
know, I'm willing to receive, so.
Okay. Say you come in to the office and your nose is dripping, you're sneezing or whatever, there's a pandemic going on.
Okay.
What are the rest of you gonna think? Get her out of here, right? Well, is there a policy for that? Do you have a policy for that? If she says, I'm staying, the heck with you, does she have any rights to do that? I don't know. In the pandemic, you set up a separate matrix of regulations and rules so that is covered. What's your first name?
Brenda.
Brenda. Brenda calls in and says, my family is sick, I'm not coming in. Does she get time off for that, for a family being sick? I don't know. She calls in and says, I'm sick, how much time do I get? What, for pandemic, does this kind of get sick time? These are all issues you're gonna deal with. In addition to the fact you've gotta run your embassies. All right? And that's why the pandemic, because that's half of it. Now here's the other half. Was it yesterday? Israel and I and some wonderful people went to the pyramids.
Okay.
Just beautiful. Okay, just fantastic time. One of them, I think the Pyramid of the Sun, had easily 1,000 people trying to get up. Pyramid. Okay. The Pyramid of the Moon had easily 1,000 people. And then the Avenue of the Dead, which would make a great address for business, you know, Avenue of the Dead. But anyway, seriously, the Avenue of the Dead, that whole plaza, several thousand people easily, you know, at least a couple, 1,000. You guys know better than I do, all right? And then when you in there, and then as you drive up and walk back or whatever, hundreds of vendors selling, making their living, food, you know, things. One thing that you blow into, it sounds like a Jaguar. Scares the hell out of some people. Seriously though, if the Ministry of Tourism doesn't have a good plan in place, that's all going away. Okay? If pandemic in Mexico, coronavirus is impacting Mexico City, all that income is going away. And that's one site. You've got how many other archaeological sites in the country? How many beaches? Wasn't one of your beaches was seaweed or something? Yeah, okay. So that alone, and that thing, that was like weeks and weeks and weeks, and hotels had a hard time. So imagine a mass thing like that. Okay. So the Department of Tourism, is that the official name of it? Department of Tourism. They need, and again, they need working with you all to have a plan, because someone's going to come to your embassy and say, hey, is it safe to go to Mexico? I want to see the pyramids. You've got to know what they tell you. They've got to be prepared, which goes back to your Ministry of Health. They've got to be prepared, which guess what? Coordination and communication. For a crisis that is going to happen, I'm sorry, if you look at the numbers, backwards here, it starts off slow, goes up, comes down. Okay? Coming down here, so probably be in April, May or June, if you're lucky. And then the secondary effects from these people are going to go like that. Okay? This is all predictable. And you know, in the States we're working on that. Again, I don't know what you're doing here. I haven't had the time to research. Okay? But things like that, these are crises you can prepare for. So when they hit, all these policies, Brenda, stay home. Brenda, go home. Because you're sniffling. All right? You know, 1/3 of your embassy is not working. How's that going to impact everybody else? You know, I've written dozens of these plans, and people are like, really? And then when it hits, like, oh my God, you're right. You don't think of the HR, human resource aspects of what we're doing. Okay, and that's part of the. Okay, cyber events. I think we've worn that out. When that went out, what happens if you lose communication connectivity to your embassies, let alone in here? Okay, and then events. Different events, countrywide, MOFA, headquarters, local area. United States, we had oh God, I can't remember, somewhere in the Middle East, people attacking our embassy. And we have plans for that. And we learn the hard way. We have plans for that. You don't have to learn, I mean, you've got experience out there. So if it's a local area disaster or a problem, how does that affect your embassy? Pick on France. Everyone in France goes on strike at least once a year. How does it impact you? You need to get the information out to the other embassies. That's really an operational event. If you get attacked by someone in France, that's more of a crisis. And then a local embassy itself, what if it has a problem? And you saw what happened to the United States in Benghazi. And quite bluntly, they handled it very poorly. That's the realm of politics. It's my quote. A crisis is an organization's defining moment. You guys do a great job, and the institute here is a fantastic institute. You know, taste the loot. Wonderful here. There's a lot of training, a lot of coordination, a lot of this, a lot of that. But one crisis and it's over. And if you don't weather, I'll just pick on you, since he's sponsoring me. One crisis, and this could be your defining moment for a generation, if you don't do it rightly. Look at Exxon Valdez. It happened in 1986. Okay? People still making jokes about Exxon Valdez. On the sad part, Fukushima, they screwed that up. That was their defining moment. Japan's getting out of nuclear energy. That's how bad it was, how badly they screwed up. That was their defining moment. But we were the victims, not for the response. Right? So you don't want your defining moment to be horrible. You want your defining moment to be, you had a crisis, we met it, we overcame it, we're back to work. That's what you want. Okay? We can make it happen. Okay? That's it. Do I have any questions for me or Israel?
Guys, if you don't have, we're gonna have questions. So you better have some.
Anything?
Nice turn.
Yes, sir. Sir,
Yes.
I was wondering, what would be the amount of time recommended to respond to a crisis? For instance, you were mentioning the case of Fukushima in Japan, and
Stopping here, communications purposes. This is what we know, even though we know stuff is happening. So you keep calm with this, and then you just keep going down the line until you finally have it under control. At least you know. I can't give you a timeline. The only time I'll give you is you got to get within 5 minutes or so, get the initial communication out, get your team together. I teach you activate a crisis team in 30 minutes. Nowadays, it doesn't have to be real as opposed to, you don't have to have 30 minutes everyone showing up in this command center. You can do it virtually. Phones, Skype, all that other stuff. Everyone gets online, you communicate, you coordinate within 30 minutes. That should be an easy target. Again, the importance of backups. Okay? You're away on the Mexican government trip to Maui, which I'm sure occurs every year, right? You're not here, who's your backup? All of your departments, who's your backup? The ambassador's not there because he's here being trained, if she's being here being trained. Who's the backup in the foreign land? That's why, again, 30 minutes is doable. Any question? Sir?
Yes. Thank you for your great presentation.
Thank you.
Both of you. First of all, for Israel prison, the program prison, isn't over yet. It's continuing collecting. The program prison, the one that collects the information, isn't over yet. It's continuing. You said that was collecting. I mean, is collecting information.
Yeah, it is collecting.
Okay, and I have a question about that. What could be the effect if we stop using sensors, I mean, to collect information? How do you get the right information to make a decision?
Okay, well that's the secret, right? That's the key. So having access to data is not difficult because we have plenty of data. We produce a lot of data. We know, but we need to learn how to get that data, right? For example, we use Python libraries, which is Python, which enables you to do a data mining analysis in social media. I'm talking about Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WeChat, and so on. I don't know WeChat, it's from China.
But then, once you get that, then you can do the analysis. Something really important here, because when you talk about these subjects, these lawyers or these data protection activists, it becomes a little bit muddy. What you have to make sure is like the way you acquire the data is in the public, or OSI, which means open source intelligence. OSI. If you are in that line, you are all good. Indeed, it was a crisis communication for the United States with that program, because when they go to the news, they say the government spying us, but the government was not spying anyone. What the government was doing was collecting raw data, metadata, to do analysis against specific mission objectives, which is terrorism or X. Once you have that big data, metadata, you have no problem to do that. But it's your personal expertise to be able to identify what variables and attributes you have to trade. And we talk, probability and so on.
Okay. One question for Mr. Steven. You were talking only about reaction. What about prevention? How do you connect the data analysis, the big data analysis, with the prevention phase of any crisis? It is possible to prevent that it's going to happen a crisis?
Yeah, well, as I said, I hope I get it right, I don't want to fail. So as I say, the analyst is the most important person in an agency, because he's the one that can acquire the data, analyze the data, and identify what are the threats and the potential risks of a cyber attack or even pandemic. And there is the need to have the communication team to be able to pass that, look what we identify. It's coming this threat, like pandemic. You do the data analysis, the rate of the spread and how it goes, what they true, where the people is coming from China or Italy or Brazil or wherever. So that is the analyst that has to come up with all quantitative analysis and pass to the crisis teams, to the planning, prevention, because these guys are the experts that will say, this is the policy that we apply. This is all that part. So there is two parts that have to work together. The James Bond and the other guys that make to do the policy. If they work alone, it fails. If these guys don't have the information that they need, they're gonna fail. And who's gonna pay the consequences? The population.
And you can do an impact analysis. Say we get a ransomware, say we get a cyber threat, say we get this, say we get that. You can come up with the scenarios, and the crisis team will respond to that. Just a couple days ago, we did a drill at the Naval College on a ransomware. And, how you respond, so they're one more step prepared for that.
The idea here is that he's saying that the analyst is the most important guy. Maybe I agree, half, 50%, because he doesn't have the power to make decisions, to take any decision. So in that case, he's not the most important guy. The guy who is going to take the decision is going to be the most important guy with the right information that you, as an analyst, will give him that, right?
Teamwork and coordination.
Right,
Exactly right.
teamwork and coordination. Okay. And I have a comment, the idea of having so many sources in the model you presented, the MIT, is also related to the political issues that we have to use when influencing people to make decisions, right? Or to select any topic. It is, in political science, it's an author that is called David Easton, who is the guy who talks about that, applying the systematic approach to the political issues. So it's mainly the idea you have. And it's about strategy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Anyone else? Okay, get your cameras ready. Let's give them the MIT pose.
Steve and I, we have a pose, right?
The MIT professor pose. You got the same pose.